Let us read Psalm 93. The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed. He has put on strength as his belt. Yes, the world is established. It shall never be moved. Your throne is established from of old. You are from everlasting. The floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their roaring. Mightier than the thunders of many waters, mightier than the waves of the sea. The Lord on high is mighty. Your decrees are very trustworthy. Holiness befits your house, O Lord, forevermore. A traveler was once visiting a palace in South India. It was a grand structure with high ceilings, intricate carvings, and ornate thrones placed in the center of vast halls. A tour guide explained that the garments of the king were carefully chosen for every public appearance. The richness of the fabric, the jewels sewn into the robe, the crown placed on his head. All of these were intended to communicate one thing: majesty. Kings and queens know that clothing carries a message. It is a visible sign of authority and power. Even today, when kings or presidents step into public life, their attire is chosen to display dignity and strength. And yet, the greatest robe ever worn is not made of silk or gold or precious gems. It is not crafted by human hands. The psalmist tells us that the Lord himself is robed in majesty, clothed not with fabric but with glory. Psalm 93 is one of the briefest psalms, yet it is like a thunderclap across the sky, a powerful reminder that Yahweh, the covenant God, reigns. He is enthroned above creation, above time, above every nation and every ruler. In a world where human power seems overwhelming and unstable, the psalm calls us to lift our eyes and behold the majesty of God's reign. The psalmist begins by drawing our attention to the Lord's garments. The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed. He has put on strength as his belt. When an earthly king takes his throne, his robe is a symbol of his dignity. But here God is clothed not in fabric but in majesty itself. His robe is fastened with strength. Isaiah paints a similar picture, describing the Lord as a warrior. He put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. He put on garments of vengeance for clothing and wrapped himself in zeal as a cloak. Unlike earthly warriors who fight with swords or guns, the Lord's weapons are righteousness, salvation, justice, and zeal. His attire communicates not fragility, but unmatched power. And this power is not abstract, it is displayed in creation itself. Yes, the world is established, it shall never be moved. The psalmist looks at the stability of the created order and sees the hand of God behind it. Mountains stand firm, seas kept their boundaries, the planet remains in their orbits, because the Lord has spoken them into place. Scientists may explain the laws of physics, but behind those laws is a personal lawgiver who upholds all things by the word of his power. Creation is not self-sustaining, it is sustained by the eternal King. The psalmist then turns to the duration of God's reign. Your throne is established from of old. You are from everlasting. Earthly dynasties rise and fall. Empires that seemed invisible, Egypt, Babylon, Rome, are now found only in history books. Even in our modern world, nations and rulers cling to power for a season, but nothing lasts forever. But the throne of God predates all history and will outlast all of time. Micah, when prophesying about the coming Messiah in chapter 5, pointed to one whose coming forth is from of old, from ancient days. The reign of God is not temporary, it is eternal. His throne was established before the foundations of the world, and it will never be toppled. But the psalm does not ignore the reality of opposition. In verses 3 and 4, we hear the crashing sound of rebellion. The floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their roaring. The psalmist uses the imagery of floods to describe the chaotic forces that rise up against God's rule. Water in the ancient world symbolized chaos and destruction. The flood in Noah's day swept away the entire earth, sparing only those who trusted in God's salvation. Later, humanity tried to resist God again by building the Tower of Babel, determined to secure themselves against judgment. But all their efforts failed because no force of human defiance can overthrow the sovereignty of God. And so the psalmist declares, mightier than the thunders of many waters, mightier than the waves of the sea, the Lord on high is mighty. The imagery is vivid. Imagine standing on the shore during a storm, hearing the deafening roar of waves as they crash against the rocks. The sea seems unstoppable, wild, and uncontainable. And yet, the Lord is mightier still. We see this truth in the New Testament when Jesus stood in a boat with his disciples, rebuked the storm, and said, "Peace, be still." At once, the waves obeyed. The disciples were left trembling, asking, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" The answer is clear. He is the Lord of Psalm 93, the one who reigns over all creation. But if creation itself bows to his command, humanity often refuses. From the Garden of Eden onward, people have chosen to resist God's reign. Jesus told a parable of citizens who declared, "We will not have this man to reign over us." Some used their gifts wisely, multiplying them for the king, while others buried them in rebellion. In the end, those who rejected his rule faced judgment. The message is sobering. It is one thing for seas and stars to obey their creator. But how much greater is the tragedy when human beings, made in his image and entrusted with free will, choose to resist the very king who gave them life. The psalm ends with a note of hope and holiness. Your decrees are very trustworthy. Holiness befits your house, O Lord, forevermore. The reign of God is not only powerful, it is pure. When Isaiah saw the Lord high and lifted up, the seraphim cried out in Isaiah chapter 6, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." Holiness is a defining characteristic of God's reign. It means he is set apart, utterly pure, incapable of injustice. Everything about his rule is trustworthy. We live in a world where leaders often abuse power, twist truth, and break promises. But the decrees of the Lord are firm. His word is reliable. His throne is established in holiness. That holiness is not just an attribute of God, it is a calling for his people. When Israel's high priest entered the temple, he wore a gold plate inscribed with the words, "Holiness to the Lord." The Apostle Peter echoes this call when he writes, "Be holy, for I am holy." John reminds us that when Christ returns, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And everyone who thus hopes in him purifies himself as he is pure. To live under the reign of God means not only admiring his majesty, but also reflecting his character. What does this mean for us practically? It means that in a world shaken by floods, whether literal disasters, political turmoil, or personal crises, we can stand secure because God, our King, reigns. His throne is unshaken, his power is unrivaled, his decrees are trustworthy. When the waves rise in your life, when sickness comes, when relationships falter, when finances crumble, you can be certain of this: the Lord on high is mightier. It also means we must examine our hearts. Are we like the citizens in Jesus' parable who refuse to give him reign over them? Or are we like faithful servants who long for his appearing, eager to be found holy when he comes? The majesty of God's reign is not only a comfort, but also a challenge. It calls us to bow before him now, joyfully submitting to his rule, so that we may reign with him when he returns. One day, the king robed in majesty will step in onto the stage of history once more. He will not come in weakness as in Bethlehem, but in glory. He will rule in righteousness, and his people will share in his reign. Until that day, our calling is clear: to worship him, to trust him, to live holy lives in anticipation of his coming. So let us lift our eyes above the storms of life and fix them on the eternal throne. Let us join the psalmist in declaring, "The Lord reigns, he is robed in majesty." And let us live each day as citizens of his kingdom, awaiting the day when his reign will be revealed in all its fullness. God bless.